Good morning, distinguished panelists, dear online followers. So today we're starting the series of events devoted to the Europe Day. And it is my absolute honor to be the moderator of the first event, which is going to be about road safety. And we are very much hopeful that by the end of this discussion, we will probably know what each and every one of us can do to maybe support in saving lives on road. So let me present the distinguished panelists now at this moment. So on my right is Evaldas Galvanauska, Second Secretary, Embassy of the Republic of Lithuania to Armenia. Jan Blesinger, Head of Political Press and Information Section of EU Delegation to Armenia. Mr. Yegor Garapetyan, the Head of Road Police in Armenia. We have Boros Shahinyan, Director of National Road Safety Council. And we have Sergei Gharamanyan, President of Road Traffic Safety and Control Non-Governmental Organization. So to start the event, I would like to invite Mr. Blesinger for the opening remarks. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you very much for inviting me to this discussion today about the road safety. I would like to welcome as well all the discussants today and also members of the Team Europe, esteemed diplomats from the member states' embassies who join us today physically and also online. I'm very happy that I can officially launch the Europe Day 2021 campaign. The Europe Day actually took place yesterday on 9th of May. It is a commemoration of Schuman Declaration that started the process of putting the European countries together in what we all know today as the European Union. I'm aware that we celebrate the Europe Day after rather difficult period of time for Armenia after the year 2020 that was marred by the COVID pandemics and later in the year by the war in Nagorno-Karabakh. However, I'm sure and I really hope that this year, the year 2021, will be better for Armenia and will also be better and beneficial for the EU-Armenia relations. This has already been embodied in entering into force the SEPA agreement, the comprehensive enhanced partnership agreement between European Union and Armenia on 1st of March this year. I would like to mention that this agreement provides a framework for many topics of common cooperation, and we really hope that we will be helping Armenia to ensure its development on many aspects, the regional, the green, and other topics that we have in common and we share common values. But today we are meeting to discuss the road safety issues. And I think it's a very timely discussion since very recently the campaign Safety is in Your Actions was launched by the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Infrastructure of the Republic of Armenia. And this campaign is being financially supported by the European Union and one of its financial institutions, the European Investment Bank. For the beginning, I don't want to go into too much details because we will have this discussion that will tackle the topics of the road safety itself. But I'm really very happy to be here with you today. And I wish you all a very nice discussion and pleasant morning today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fleshinger. Well, I am myself Arevigana Pirsyan, and today I am here as a regular driver, as a regular pedestrian, and I want to manage the expectations that I have zero knowledge on what has to be done to make our lives safer. So I myself will be probably having the questions that most of our online followers will have, and we will try to open up and understand what's going to be the road safety policy in our country, maybe look into the experiences of your countries, and then hopefully come up with recommendations for all of us. So I would like to start this conversation with Mr. Fleshinger, if I may. And you're coming from Czech Republic. You have a very extensive experience in working in so many different countries. And you've been here for almost 3 years now. I would be so much interested to know, what was the first impression that you came to Armenia and you experienced the traffic, you started to work in Yerevan, and what is it that has captured your attention as something that has been probably different, positive or negative way? Please.
Thank you for this question, and thank you for reminding me that I have been here already for 3 years, which is quite a long period of time. I did work with the Czech embassy and now with the European delegation, EU delegation. I have to say that at the beginning, I had the image that I'm coming to a country which in terms of population and inhabitants is 3 times smaller than the Czech Republic. I expected the capital to be adequate to that size, but actually Yerevan is indeed quite a big city. It's more than a third of population of Armenia lives here, and therefore the traffic here is much bigger than I expected. I have to say that I, since the beginning, live on the outskirts of Vahagni, of Yerevan, in the quarter of Vahagni, and therefore I have to commute every day to work. And frankly speaking, in Prague or in other European cities, I would be doing it with pleasure by public transport. Public transport in Yerevan is not bad, but I have to say that commuting from the outskirts of Yerevan to the center is not an easy experience because of traffic, because of the state of the minibuses in Yerevan, and therefore it has been somewhat difficult experience sometimes. What surprised me most, since I really travel daily 9 kilometers there and back, that there is hardly a single day where I wouldn't see a car accident. Even if it's a small one, if just 2 cars basically touch each other, very often the traffic is blocked, and very often there are also unfortunately injuries involved. In that respect, of course, that was not a very positive surprise, but I also served in the countries where the traffic is more difficult, the transport is more difficult. So I appreciate the situation here. I like the Armenian metro system, although it's very small. I regret, coming from Prague, that there are no more trams in Yerevan. And I also regret that trolleybuses are more and more scarce on the streets of Yerevan. I sincerely love to use the public transport, and this is something that probably the city of Yerevan could improve. And I know that it's actually working hard, but it will probably take some time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for an excellent reminder that we have a metro, an underground train, which probably very few citizens use, and we should probably be using that that means of transportation more frequently. About the statistics, I was saving the statistics for Mr. Karapetyan, but now I need to spell it out. So we are indeed having lots of accidents. We had in 2019, 4,799 road accidents. Unfortunately, we had 341 deaths. And if we are assuming that we are a population of 3 million, the EU average number, and it's, of course, we don't make averages on this very sad occasion, but it's 51 per million person. So in Armenia, the fatal outcomes of the accidents is twice as much as the EU average. And this is a great problem that we definitely need to be tackling. But I was looking, when I was preparing for this panel, I looked into what Lithuania has been doing. And I think that you have quite an extensive experience from the policy perspective, what you've done to change the behavior of the road users, the drivers' behavior, to improve the infrastructure. What would you share with us from your experience, Mr. Galvanauskas, what you've done in Lithuania so that the road situation has improved? Please.
So, first of all, it's an honor to participate in this panel. Firstly, I would like to mention that in Armenia, one of our priorities from the perspective of development cooperation is transport security, road safety. And probably the main reason we are participating in this panel. Last year, we started a development cooperation project, Safe Transport System in Armenia, which is implemented by Lithuanian Transport Security Administration in cooperation with Ministry of Territorial Administration and Infrastructure. So to start, I would like to say that Lithuania and Armenia are very similar countries. So as you mentioned that there are up to 3 million inhabitants in Armenia, the same population we have in Lithuania. So we can compare with absolute numbers, with statistics and the rest of the data. I have to say that several years ago, more than several, let's say in 90s, in the year 2000, the situation in Lithuania was something very similar to Armenian situation from a perspective of transport security and road safety. Just to compare, in 2010, we had 300 fatalities in road accidents in Lithuania. And in the year 2020, it was decreased almost up to 50%. So the number was 149. So a decrease is twice, is impressive. Of course, the main impact for our policy was our entrance to European Union in 2004. So I would say that was the date when all those statistics numbers started decreasing essentially. And the purpose of the project I mentioned is to share all those models, all that knowledge and experience with Armenian counterparts, with Armenian institutions and experts, to show what worked in Lithuania and how we did that. So this is what the project is about.
Thank you so much. I think that the project that you're mentioning about is already on the go, and I know colleagues here will probably talk about it more as we get to that point. So, and sharing your experience, all of the policies and strategies, I believe is going to be very important for Armenia. Now coming to Mr. Karapetyan. So I need to satisfy my curiosity. as a driver that probably most of our listeners and online followers have, we have had a number of policies aiming to improve the road safety in the country. We had cameras, speed cameras. We even have introduced the point system for the drivers, hoping that the drivers will have a better driver behavior. But the anecdotal evidence is probably not really proving this all to be wrong. Having the policy system and being in charge of the system, what would you think could be the biggest challenge in our country to change the driver's behavior and to improve the road safety in our country? Please.
Շնորհակալություն։
Thank you.
Մենք իհարկե շնորհակալություն եմ հայտնում հրավերի համար, ինչպես նաև
Thank you
բոլոր
very much for the invitation,
ինչպես նաև
and thank you
հասարակական
to all the
կազմակերպությունները,
different
որոնք նաև
government
ջանքի
agencies
առանց չեն
and
խնայում
NGOs
նմանատիպ միջոցառումներ կազմակերպելու եւ
organize
ամենօրյա
these kinds
աշխատանք
of events, and we also work
իրականացնելու
on a
նաև
daily
ճանապարհային
basis
ոստիկանության հետ։
with road
Ցավալի է,
police,
բայց
traffic
փաստ
police.
որ ունենք
It is very unfortunate, but it's true that we do have many victims.
Ճիշտ նկատեցիք
You
2020
properly
թվականից
mentioned in
արդեն
2020
բալային համակարգ է ներդրվել Հայաստանի
the system of
Հանրապետությունում
points
եւ
for
բալային
drivers was
համակարգը
introduced,
այսօր գործում է միայն
and this
տեխնիկական միջոցների կողմից
system
հայտնաբերված
of
խախտումների
points
նկատմամբ,
applies only for
այսինքն
violations that are
ճանապարհային ոստիկան
noticed
կանգնեցված
by
եւ
the
ֆիքսված խախտումը
cameras
դեռևս
equipment.
բալային համակարգի մեջ
So if your
չի ներառվում։
violation has been reported by a
Դա
police
կլինի
officer, it doesn't
22
affect your
թվականից։
points. It will start affecting your points from 2022 or second half of 2022. And of course, the drivers will be notified about this in due time.
Ճանապարհատրանսպորտային պատահարների
Of course,
հիմնական մասը
the majority of traffic accidents,
իհարկե որ բալային համակարգի ներդրումից հետո
actually
90 արագաչափ եւ բոլոր
about 90 speed
տեսախցիկները,
cameras,
քանի որ տեղադրված են Երևան քաղաքում,
since most of them were in Yerevan,
արդեն իսկ
after
նվազել
the
է
point
Երևան
system
քաղաքում ճանապարհատրանսպորտային
introduced,
պատահարների թիվը
the
իսկ
number of traffic accidents in Yerevan has
մի
been
քանի
reduced because of all the cameras in
աշխատանքներ
Yerevan.
իրականացնելով Երևան քաղաքում
Also,
վրաերթերի թիվն է նվազել,
the
ինչպես
number of
վրաերթ,
people
այնպես զոհ,
being
այնպես
run
վիրավորել։
over
Իսկ
is also
ճանապարհատրանսպորտային
being reduced.
պատահարների եւ վրաերթերի մասով մարզերում խնդիր
In the
ունենք։
regions, we still have a
Այստեղ
problem
պետք է
also
նայենք,
with people
որ
being
մենք
run over and with traffic accidents.
ճանապարհների ճիշտ
So the numbers in
պատրաստելու
Yerevan have reduced.
գծանշում, ճանապարհային նշան, այդ
It's very
ամեն ինչը
important also
բերում է
to have the proper
նաև
markings on the roads, proper
վթարների
signage,
թվի ավելացման,
which
եթե
also
դրանք ժամանակին չեն արվում։ Ճանապարհային
will increase the
ոստիկանության
number of
կողմից
traffics if
արդեն
you don't do it properly.
մեկ տարի
and
է
on time.
աշխատանք է իրականացվում կրթության նախարարության հետ, որպեսզի
The road police is
առաջիկայում
also working with the Ministry of
ցածր
Education for about a year
դասարաններում ազատ կամ դասթեկական դասերի ժամանակ
introduce
իրականացվեն երթևեկության դասընթացներ։
road
Այն
safety
ամենամինիմալ
subjects in school,
գիտելիքները,
lower
որը
grades,
պետք է
to
ունենա
provide the minimum knowledge
աշակերտը,
that a student must have.
փորձում ենք մենք դպրոցահասակ երեխաներին կարողանանք
So we're
մատուցել։
now working with
Մենք
school-age
պատրաստակամություն ենք
children,
հայտնել
young children.
ուսուցիչներին, դասերներին վերապատրաստելու եւ
We are
փորձ
also
արդեն փոխանցելու
ready to
աշակերտներին։
train the teachers so that they can
Վերջին
then teach the
մոտ
students
5
in
տարվա
turn.
ընթացքում
In the last
Հայաստանի
5 years or so,
Հանրապետությունում մուտք է գործել այնքան տրանսպորտային,
there's
գրեթե
so many
կրկնապատկվել է, այսպես
vehicles imported into the
տրանսպորտային
country.
միջոցների թիվը,
So the number of vehicles has really doubled
Տարների
almost in the country, which is also another reason for more accidents.
երևի թե այսքանը
I
ընթացքում
think that's it for now.
Thank
If you
you.
have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of questions along the discussion, but two things that I believe are very important from what you said is that we are going to have more law enforcement mechanisms in place starting from 2022. And this is something that most of the European countries also did to address this issue. And of course, education. I couldn't say, I'm biased, of course, but I couldn't say more how important it is to educate the kids, the pedestrians, the drivers, everyone, and not only through the formal education, but also informally. And I trust that campaigning is one of the greatest ways to educate the society in terms of their behavior, what has to be done. And I want to ask my second question to Mr. Shahinian, my next question. So there is the campaign, safety is in your hands. It's has so many layers and so many important messages just with the title. Could you please tell us a little bit more of what the campaign is about and how you're going to tackle the change of the behavior of the drivers? And also probably you could touch upon the regular citizens, the pedestrian, which we learned that it's also an issue in our country. Please.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank for the organization of this panel and also congratulate with the Youth Day. And also, I think it's a good opportunity that this day is devoted to road safety. And in this light, I think this became one of the biggest issues around the world, as all the deaths are preventable in case of car accidents. And I think that the new terminology should come and substitute the word accident, because this is not an accident and everything could be prevented. And from the light of the campaign, yes, I need to say that it's unique in its own, as it's covering whole Armenia and for a longer period of time, which is unprecedented in Armenia. There were several attempts doing different campaigns in Armenia, and it's done in the process as well. But this one is commenced on March 15 and will end in end of June, which is, as I mentioned, unprecedented. It covers 4 specific objectives, behavioral objectives that we are tackling. And these are taken from the statistics. And basically, I would say that it's not unique for Armenia. It's everywhere, almost the same. And these 4 issues, which are the either the causes of the accidents or the consequences of the accident. And these are the drink driving, speeding, seatbelts, and distracted driving. And we can see from the statistics that it takes a huge part of the percentage of the accidents which are taking place because of the distracted driving, because of drink driving. And the consequences of the crashes could prevent and could save your life if you are wearing a seatbelt. And as you know, we always are saying that it's a culture of people not to wear a seatbelt. But I would need to say that it's been justified, that there is no mentality issue. And it's been done in 2009 with the efforts of the government and the road police, that people start using the seatbelts, and it saved almost 20% of fatalities were reduced only in 1 year time. And this is happening now as well. You can see that most people already get to use the seatbelts. It's not something strange. And what we need is to change the behavior of people so that they should understand that this is in first case, not to penalize people, but to save their lives and their lives of people, the beloved. And the campaign you may saw on TV, it goes on TV, on 5 channels on TV and on a prior time. It also covering the social media. And this is one of the aspects that we are raising the awareness through the videos which we made during this campaign. But also what is unique, and I think it's again unprecedented, and is continuing what said Mr. Karapetyan, is that everything lies into the education of our kids. And it was a dream of ours to have road safety education, compulsory education at schools. But always an obstacle. The obstacle is very simple. It's the funding. Because it either should come from the government or it should come from parents or the schools. And neither way is possible. But it's too difficult, let's say so, considering the country needs in general. But we overcome this, and thanks to the European Union and to the EIB, the European Investment Bank, that this became possible. And in cooperation with the Ministry of Education, we've been able to create an online course for kids. And I need to announce that it started from the 3rd of May, and it ends up today, that all kids need to pass this online training, road safety, and submit the certificates online, submit to their teachers. And teachers in their return, they should submit to the ministry or to us. And I need to say by Monday, the data was that 105,000 kids got certificates, which means that they have passed the training. Because it is designed in a way that you cannot pass to the next lesson if you do not answer the quiz questions from the first lesson. So I can say officially that they successfully passed the training, and it was designed in a way that they've been doing this with parents, registering online with parents and going through the training with parents. So we tackled, when we say 105 kids, we can say in average plus the parents. And I think most of those who are now listening us from Armenia and have kids aged from 6 to 14, they definitely know about this. And I need to say as well that this is unprecedented, as we had 3 websites we've been crushed almost every 2-3 hours. We even overcome very famous online portals, because we had in a second thousands of users in 1 second. So which was very difficult for, of course, for the West. But this is a good news, because it means that people are interested and they're doing it. And we did our best to make sure that kids would be able to pass. And I think this could be continued. And now we are discussing with the ministry to find the ways of making this compulsory. And once again, I would like to stress that this is fully free of charge, and people can visit anytime they want of the day, hour, no matter it's a weekend time or it's a school time, whatever, and they can do it with teachers, with parents, and they can have this training all forever, unless we will make some changes. I would also like to add something, that this training is not based on the science. We always used, coming from Soviet times, that kids need to pass and know the stop sign, I don't know, whatever signs of prohibition on the road or traffic lights. But the idea behind this training is that kids would know this anyway, because kids are part of this life. But what they don't know is how to feel the street. That it is important to listen when you cross the street. It is important to see when you cross the street. How to communicate with the friends on the street. So this everything is tackling the things which are not, you cannot find in a legal basis. And another important, especially for Armenia, it's night visibility, which is a huge issue. Armenians, I don't know why, but we love black, everything black. And when you drive, especially in the rainy weather, you can't see people crossing. And I wouldn't say that we are best pedestrians in the world, so that everybody cross the street in a correct place. And so when they cross the street not in a proper place, then drivers are not able to see. And so everything needs to come from the school age as well. And that's why we involve the parents, so that parents also would know about this. Very simple things one may think of, but not everyone thinking in details about this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zayan. It's been, first of all, very informative for also our followers online, that the platform is still open for a day. I guess I'm speaking on behalf of a number of parents, because I myself tried, that that can be extended. The deadline can be extended, because it's really a very interesting platform, not just for the kids, I can tell. And I am very much hopeful that this will continue. And you mentioned about the seat belts. It's amazing that 45% of the car accidents worldwide are not becoming fatal just because of the seatbelt. And about 55% are not, people are not getting serious injuries, again, because of seatbelts. And coming back to the law enforcement, what I've been noticing is that in 2009, yes, we had more seatbelts. Now it's being loosened it up. So I am hopeful that with 2022, when there will be the even stronger, maybe law enforcement in place, this issue will also be solved. So, Mr. Kahramanyan, I looked into your experience, and you have a very extensive experience in a number of research, policy development. So could you please share, knowing the Armenian driver and not the best pedestrian, also having the experience from other countries, could you please share with us what could be the nudges for our citizens to use so that the citizens would be more conscious in what type of a drivers they are? Maybe pedestrians would have reflectors. What you would recommend the policymakers, we have the chief policymaker here, what would you recommend to do in our country?
First of all, let me thank the organizers and the European Union. And please let me speak in Armenian because I can't speak clearly. And for those very serious questions. Հայաստանում երթևեկության անվտանգությունը իհարկե շատ
լուրջ
հիմնախնդիրների առաջ է եւ բայց այնուամենայնիվ ես պետք է 10 տարի հետ գնամ եւ ասեմ որ 2008 թվականին մենք ունեցինք 400-ից ավելի զոհ
we had more than 400 victims, and one time we were able to reduce the number of victims. In 2016 we had 260 some deaths. This was when Mr. Yegor Karapetyan was in charge of traffic police back then, so this is to his credit. Since 2016, traffic police has been much more open and transparent than many other agencies in Armenia. They were always open for discussions, for recommendations, and implementing these recommendations. Again, to his credit. We've already mentioned the main issues that Mr. Shanyan has mentioned. Already Mr. Karapetyan mentioned about drivers. Of course, in different years, some changes have been made, but in the last few years, the number of victims is increasing for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is the significant increase in the number of vehicles. In the last 5 years, more cars have been imported in the country than all the cars that existed in Armenia before that. Also, the size of the roads has remained the same, but the number of vehicles is physically much larger. If we compare the cars with water, for example, if you have more water flowing through the same pipe, then you'll have more stagnant water. And then drivers don't use car seats, drivers don't use seatbelts, then the results of traffic accidents are very unfortunate. If we follow the minimum requirements of the law, car seats and seatbelts, maybe the number of victims will significantly reduce. As I said, in 2016, we've had positive experience. Of course, we still had victims, but we had a significant reduction in number of victims. In the last 10 years, we have more than 3,000 victims altogether, more than 300 per year, which is, on average, is the population of a high-rise apartment building. So if we ignored the Artsakh war in 2020, we had never lost so many people on a border with Azerbaijan as in our traffic accidents before the war. So we have this war going on inside the country, basically.
մեքենաներ վարում, մյուս
some cases you
նորներն են
have
թույլ տալիս, որ
teenagers
այդ ամենը
driving
դեր
cars.
ունենա,
You have parents that
եւ
allow all of
հիմնախնդիրները
this
դա
to
ալկոհոլ
happen.
օգտագործած մեքենա վարելն է,
Then
բարձր
drunk driving, driving with high
հիմնականում
speed,
դրանք այդ փորձն են հեռախոս կամ վարորդին շեղով
speaking on
հանգամանքներ
the
եւ
phone and being
այս ամենի
distracted
ուսուցանումը դպրոցահասակ
while driving and then not
տարիքից
wearing
շատ
seatbelts. These
կարեւոր
are
է,
the four main problems.
որովհետեւ ես ինքս
And it's very
մասնակցել եմ
important to
նման
talk about
տարբեր
these things
ծրագրերի
since
եւ
the
փորձ
early
ցույց տալիս, որ
childhood. I've
միջինից
participated
բարձր
in different
դասանցի
projects.
երեխաների համար սովորեցնելը շատ դժվար է, որովհետեւ
And experience
իրենք
shows
ունեն
that it
իրենց
is very difficult
ծնողներից
to
օրինակ,
teach
ով
older
կարող է
kids
մեքենա վարել
because older kids
ծխախոտը
already
բերանին առանց
see
ամրագրելու
what their parents do, for example, driving
իրենց համար
and
դա
smoking
որպես
without a
օրինակ է, իրենք ունեն
seatbelt
իրենց
and under the influence
այսպես
of
ասեմ
alcohol, and
օրինակը,
they follow this role model
որից իրենք սովորում են իրենց ամբողջ
that their
կյանքում։
parents are.
Իսկ փոքր տարիքի
But
երեխաներին
if you teach
սովորեցնելը
younger kids,
շատ ավելի հեշտ է,
it is
որովհետև
much
իրենք
easier
նոր են, ասես ասեմ,
because
տեսնում աշխարհը եւ իրենց
they
ավելի հեշտ
just
է
getting
փոխել
to
դեպի
know the world,
սա
and it
շատ
is easier
կարևոր
to
եւ
change
նուրբ
their
թեմա է,
view to the
բայց այդ
best.
ամենում պետք է
It's a very sensitive
նաեւ
subject.
ծնողները իրենց
But parents
վարքագիծը
play a
պետք
very
է փոխեն
important role
ծնողները
here. And parents also need to change their behavior.
մի փոքր ավելի գիտելիքները ամրապնդեն այս ուղղությամբ, որովհետև ես եղել եմ Չեխիայում, հատկապես Պրահայում եւ մեկ շաբաթ այնտեղ հասկացնելով ես ուղղակի նախանձել եմ այնտեղ բնակիչներին, իրենք ունեն լավագույն հանրային տրանսպորտը, երևի թե իրենք ունեն կիրթ վարորդներ, ես չեմ կարող ասել կիրթ մարդիկ, բայց որպես հետևանք կիրթ վարորդը նաեւ կիրթ մարդ է,
I cannot generalize for the whole public, but the drivers were very polite and very proper. They are very tolerant people as drivers, but they're not tolerant of crimes.
այնպիսի հետևանքներ առաջացնի, որ կարող է վթարներ առաջացնի։
Doing something
Այնտեղ ուղղակի խոսքեր չկան, թե նաև այնտեղ տեսախցիկները շատ քիչ են, եւ վարորդները չեն փորձում հիշել թե որտեղ է։ Մեր մոտ տեսախցիկները արագաչափ սարքերով շուրջ 12 գործ ունեն, նաև միևնույն ժամանակ ներդրված ինչ ԱՊԱ համակարգ է,
together with the insurance system, starting from 2010,
պետք է որ այնպիսի ազդեցություն գործեն, ինչպես օրինակ Չեխիայում, բայց մեր մոտ այդպես չստացվեց։ Մեր մոտ վարորդների մի մասը, ոչ բոլորը, մի մասը սովորեցին որտեղ է տեսախցիկները եւ այդ հատվածում իրենց կանոնների մեջ են երթևեկում, այլ հատվածներում ոչ։ Դա եւս աշխարհընկալման ենթագիտակցորեն օրենքները որպես պետության, ասես ասեմ, պետության սկզբունքներից ելել իջնող կարևոր կանոններ են, որոնք որ պետք է պահպանվեն։ Բայց մեր մոտ պատճառների մեջ ես չեմ խորանալ, որտեղ շատ են, բայց այնուամենայնիվ պետք է փորձենք այդ աշխարհընկալումը փոխել, որովհետև երթևեկության կանոնները մենք վարորդների մեջ ասես չգրված արտահայտություն ենք անում, ասում ենք երթևեկության կանոնների գիրքը գրված է արյունով, որովհետև
we keep saying that the traffic laws are written with blood, because anything is written there is based on experience, because someone has lost his life or something. Going back to the point system,
ԱՊԱ համակարգի ավելի հեշտացված տարբերակը, ինչպես նշվեց, ամեն օր վթարներ է, բայց այդ վթարները
simplified system of traffic insurance
օրենքները գրված են, որպեսզի 5 րոպեով գործընթացը ավարտվի, բայց մեր քաղաքացիները շատերը զլանում են դանել եւ ստիպված 1-2 ժամ սպասում են որ ճանապարհին ոստիկանություն գա, բայց իրավական տեսանկյունից այդ խնդիրները այո ժամանակին համընթաց մեր պետական կառույցները փորձել են կարգավորել։ Մեկ-մեկ ստացվում է,
from the legal point of view,
բայց այդ դեպքում կարող եմ ասել ստացվում է։ Ուկրաինայի միավորների համակարգը ես ինքս դրա կողմնակիցն եմ, բայց այս պահին ինքը ամբողջությամբ չի աշխատում։ Իր համար շատ կարևոր է վերահսկման համակարգը, որը այս պահին տեխնիկապես չի գործում եւ դա սպասվում է հաջորդ տարի ամբողջ հայաստանում ընդհանուր առմամբ բարեկային ծառայության ներդրման հետ միաժամանակ որոնք այդ տրանսպորտային միջոցները պարոն Կարապետյանը կհավելի, որ տրանսպորտային միջոցները համալրվել են նոր տեխնիկական սարքավորումներով, որոնք ավտոմատ երթևեկության մեջ գտնելու են այլ վարորդներին, ովքեր որ զրկված են կամ կասեցված են վարորդականներով։ Ինչ են դա նշում, ներկայումս մեր
automatically identified drivers who do not have a driver's license or whose driver's license has been suspended. because currently we have about 7,000 drivers who drive, but finding them, identifying them is difficult. Drivers who should not be driving. This equipment will help. The point system was introduced but those who lose their points are not removed from traffic because it's technically not possible now. So every day dozens of drivers lose their license, but they still keep driving. Especially in the regions, we have this problem. We have younger people and older people driving without the driver's license, without the license plate, under the influence of alcohol, because it's very difficult to control them. Also, outside of Yerevan, in small communities, the problem is very difficult to address. We are now almost have completed the information campaign about safe communities in 85 communities. We did this campaign, provide some basic tools to teachers and students in schools. Through these posters, for example, here it says that black clothes have the most visibility. The kids need to develop this culture of wearing bright colors. Then next one is safe driving, because especially in the regions, the small communities, they don't like wearing seatbelts. If I wear my seatbelt, they look at me like I'm an extraterrestrial or something. Then the next poster is about drunk driving. So Mr. Karapetyan can confirm in the masses we have a lot more drunk driving cases, 10 times more than here actually, in Yerevan. And the next one is talking on the phone while driving and other distractions, which also causes victims. And in Yerevan, it is the road police that is the state body responsible for traffic in Yerevan. And of course, there will be some problems, but actually more than half of the victims are outside of Yerevan and less than half of in Yerevan, while Yerevan has a lot more vehicles than outside other parts of the country. So I wish our drivers wisdom and more knowledge, because traffic rules, knowing the traffic rules, you can feel more secure, you can provide safety for yourself and your family if you know the traffic rules.
It's been really, to some extent, very eye-opening to know that, first of all, to learn about the science behind learning, which is the younger we start, and there is a science behind it. The younger we start, the higher is the likelihood that we can actually stick to what we've learned. Then having exposure is also a conducive environment, is also something that is helping to learn more. And we know with just stepping out of home, we're getting exposed to traffic, to road safety. And I will come back to Mr. Karapetyan on this one about the adult, our adult drivers and adult citizens, what we could be doing. But this is about a cultural change. We are talking about a cultural change, and this is really huge. So I really would like to know, Mr. Galvanauskas, what do you believe the project that you're supporting now in Armenia, how is it going to support this cultural change? It's immense.
Right. So this is, I think, this is a very important question about driving culture and in general, the culture of communication and seeing, understanding other participants of traffic. Be it drivers or be it pedestrians, all who participate in traffic, they are responsible for the situation, for the consequences. In traffic, there are three main elements, key elements. So first one is people, second would be roads, and the third vehicles. So, and everything depends on the quality of these three elements and on the organization of interaction of these three elements. So this Lithuanian project of safe transport system in Armenia is mainly about two of them, people and vehicles. Because roads it's more about infrastructure, about infrastructural solutions, etc., which is also of the same importance. So talking about people is firstly about education and about preparation of novice drivers. It's very important to have a proper system of preparing the new drivers, to be sure they learn quality driving and as good as possible. So that's very important. Then we can name other related measures, let's say like the second and additional learning for offending drivers, those who violated the regulations. Then all those penalty systems for which is already the part of police functions. Second element, vehicles. So that's, as you mentioned, Armenia is getting more and more vehicles during recent years. And it's very important to assure that those vehicles which circulate in traffic system, they are of good quality, of good technical quality. So here we come to this periodical technical inspections, which is another segment of our project, and the control system of periodical technical inspections. So these are the key elements of a project. The education itself, it's not really the part of this initiative, but I can say that from Lithuanian experience, when, for example, Mr. Pogos was telling about the issue of seat belts, it was so familiar to me because I remember those years when we were trying to, so to say, convince drivers to fasten the seat belt. So today in Lithuania, it's not even a question. I mean, if you are in the front seat or if you are in the back seat, there's usually people, they just fasten automatically. So, and I also remember this this topic when I was driving around Yerevan with some Armenian colleagues. Well, and someone takes a seat in my car. So, and if a person does not fasten the seat belt, so it starts beeping a signal. It says, "Oh, you didn't switch this one off." I mean, it was like, why, for what? I mean, it's natural to fasten the seatbelt. So education is truly very important, and I think one should use all possible means for that. To involve influencers, musical stars, education at schools, whatever it takes. I think it's key segment.
Thank you so much. I want to hold on for a second on this one and turn to Mr. Karapetyan. So the three key important things is that as you mentioned, is the people, the vehicles, and the roads. I believe the most difficult thing is to maybe build the infrastructure. As Mr. Kahramanyan was mentioning, that giving the comparison that if we have a small pipeline and there's too much water, it's going to explode in any case. So could you please share what are your maybe plans? What do you intend to do in terms of safeguarding the third important element, and also maybe tackling a little bit upon this technical checkup that the cars are used to go, but we know that in reality, this is not really the case. Please.
Շատ ճիշտ նկատառում,
Very
Եվ
right.
եթե
You
սկսենք
mentioned very
ամրագոտից
rightly.
մի քիչ
Let's start
խոսել,
with the seat belt. I would
մեր
like to say a
վարորդների
couple
մոտ
of words
այնպիսի մի
about that.
տպավորություն է, որ երբ որ
Drivers think
ճանապարհային ոստիկանին տեսնելուց նոր ամրագոտի են գցում,
that they should wear a seatbelt only when they see a police
ճանապարհային
officer
ոստիկանի
nearby.
խախտեն այդ ամրագոտին
So they
գցում,
do
բայց
it
պետք
for
է
the police
հասկանան, որ դա
officer, really,
հենց
but they
իրենց
need to
կյանքի
realize that
առողջության մասին է
it's to
խոսքը
save their
գնում։
own life.
Եվ թող
They
չմտածեն,
do it
որ
for
դրանով
themselves,
պետք է
not for police
պարտադիր իրենք
officers.
վարչական արձանագրություն գրվի իրենց վրա։ Օրինակ
And they shouldn't
ճանապարհային
think that they should be
ոստիկանությունը ունի
fined
մեծ
for this
սարք, որը
necessarily and only then
ժամանակ առ ժամանակ Երևանի
For
տարբեր
example,
փողոցներում,
the
տարբեր
police has
պուրակներում
a
արդեն եղանակը
piece of
լավացել է եւ
equipment.
երևի թե դուք էլ կնկատեք, արդեն դուրս ենք հանելու այդ սարքը
That
հատուկ
is
են
going to be
վարորդների
used
համար է,
especially
որը
in
որ
good weather. It's for
առանց
drivers
ամրագոտու տրանսպորտային միջոցը վարելու համար կկանգնեցվի, կտեղափոխվի այդ
will be
վայր
stopped
եւ
for
իրան
not wearing a
նստեցնում ենք այդ
seatbelt.
սարքի վրա,
They will
որպեսզի
be moved
վարորդը
there and will put them
տեսնի
on
թե
this piece of
30
equipment to
կմ/ժ
see
արագության դեպքում այդ սարքը ինչ ձև է պահում, այսինքն
how
հարվածը
this
ինչ
equipment
բան, ելուր մնաց 60-ը կամ չգիտեմ 50
it would
կմ/ժ
simulate
արագությունը։
the
Մենք
hit
այդ սարքերը
in different
օգտագործել ենք
speeds
մեծ
to show
հիմնարկներում,
what it
դա
feels like.
Coca-Cola-ներ,
We've
բժշկական
used this equipment
հաստատություններ
in
են
Coca-Cola and some medical
եւ
institutions, some
տարբեր
large
վարորդների
medical
հետ միասին
institutions,
փորձարկել
and
ենք
we have
իհարկե։
checked it with
Եվ
different
կարծում եմ
drivers.
դա ուսուցողական է նաև իրենց համար, որ
I think this is
հասկանան
very
թե
eye-opening for
ինչ
them to
ազդեցություն
understand
կունենա ավելի
what kind
մեծ
of
արագությամբ
impact
հարվածը
you can have
եւ
when
այդ
you're driving
ամրագոտու
with a
կյանքի
certain
փրկվելը։
speed and how
Ճանապարհային
important the
ոստիկանությունը
seatbelt can
արդեն
be
մոտ
to save your
2
life.
տարի է Չեխիայից ձեռք
The
էր
road
բերել
police
թևկապներ լուսանդրադարձիչ, որոնք որ մենք
acquired some
դպրոցներում,
reflectors from the Czech
մանկապարտեզներում
Republic
հանդիպելու
a couple of
ժամանակ
years ago, and when we go to schools and
դասընթացներ էինք տալիս
kindergartens,
երեխաներին եւ
we
բաժանում
would teach them
դպրոցահասակ
about
եւ
road
ինչ չէ նաեւ
safety and provide these
մանկապարտեզի
reflectors
երեխաներին
to school children and kindergarten children.
որ պարոն Ղարամանյանը ներկայացրեց, որ գիշերային ժամերին մենք
mentioned
ավելի
this is
մուգ
very
գույնի
important for
հագուստ ենք հագնում եւ
dark
ոչ
hours
տեսանելի
of
ենք
the day.
դառնում,
As he
դա
mentioned, we
իրականում
often
այդպես է,
wear dark
բաժանում ենք
clothing, which is
երեխաներին,
really
որպեսզի
true. So we provided these
տեսանելի լինեն
reflectors
վարորդների
to
համար, մոտ
kids so that they can
200-250
be more
մետր հեռավորության
visible
վրա
for
դա
drivers.
տեսանելի է։
You can
Եվ
see a kid from
նմանատիպ
200, 250 meters
էլեմենտները
already
պետք է մեր
when he or she is
համազգեստի վրա
wearing a
շատ լինի։
reflector.
Կան տարբեր
And we
երկրներ,
need to
որտեղ
have
որ
these reflectors more and
արտադրում
more
են
on our
եւ
uniforms and on our clothes.
հագուստ արտադրողներին, որպեսզի
There are some countries that require
լուսանդրադարձիչ էլեմենտներ
clothing
լինի այդ
manufacturers
համազգեստների
to
վրա, որպեսզի
include
վարորդների համար
reflectors on the
տեսանելի լինի։
clothes
Դա
so
իրականում
that people can be
հրաերթերի
visible for
քանակը շատ
drivers, and that really
կնվազեցնի։
does reduce the number of
Հաջորդ հարցը
people
որն է
being run over. What was your next question?
Տեխասմոդի մասին
About
ցավալի է,
the
բայց այսօր
technical
Հայաստանի
inspection.
Հանրապետությունում
Unfortunately,
տեխնիկական ստուգում չի արվում։ Իհարկե
there is no
տարածքային կառավարման
technical
նախարարությունը
inspection in
նախաձեռնել է,
Armenia.
որ
Of course, the
պետք է
Ministry
նորից
of Technical
պարտադիր դառնա,
Administration is
որովհետև
planning to make it more,
ես ուղղակի չեմ
make it
իմանում
required
մի
again. But I really
երկիր, որտեղ որ
don't know of any
ուղղակի
country
ավտոմեքենան առանց
where
տեխնիկական ստուգման
countries
վարվի։
where a car can be
միանշանակ
driven without technical inspection. I
ճանապարհ
don't know of any
տրանսպորտային
other country.
պատահարների համար առաջի, եթե չասեմ,
This
գոնե
is the
երկրորդ
number one or at least the number
եթե
two
չկա
reason for
տրանսպորտային միջոցի անվան
accidents.
դողը, չգիտեմ, արգելակման համակարգը, եթե
If
չի
the brake
ստուգվում, այդ
system doesn't
տրանսպորտային
work, if the
միջոցը
brake system is
պոտենցիալ
not checked,
վթարի
for
մասնակից
example,
կարող է
that car
դառնալ։
can be a
Իհարկե, ես
potential killer.
համոզում եմ դրա հետ։ Մենք
So I agree that it's very
բարձրաձայնել
important.
ենք, իհարկե
We
տարածքային
have
կառավարման նախարարությունը
talked about
դրանում
this, the
աշխատում
Ministry
է։
of Territorial
Եթե չեմ
Administration
սխալվում,
is
պետք է
working
որ
on it.
ընդունվել է
I
արդեն,
think someone says that the law has been adopted already.
շատ
It
մեծ
will be
թվով
enforced soon,
կնվազեցնի ճանապարհ
and that will
տրանսպորտային
reduce the
պատահարները։
number of traffic accidents significantly, I believe.
Արտադրելով հնարավորություն եմ խնդրում,
Taking
խոսք
this
գնաց նաև
opportunity,
ողջելից խմիչք
I wanted to
օգտագործող
talk
վարորդների
also
մասով,
about drunk
մենք
driving.
2021 թվականին արդեն իսկ
In
1300
2021,
վարորդի հայտնաբերել ենք ողջելից խմիչք
we've
օգտագործած
identified
վիճակում,
1,300
միջոցները
drivers who
տեղափոխվել
were
են հատուկ պահպանվող տարածք, իրենց նկատմամբ
driving under
կազմվել
the
է
influence of
վարչական
alcohol. Their
արձանագրությունն ու մասը
cars were
զրկվել են
removed to a
վարչական
certain
իրավունքի վարելուց,
place.
իսկ բանային
and some
համակարգով
of them
իհարկե
have lost their
մյուս
licenses.
վարորդների համար դա տեսանելի չէ, բայց արդեն
Some
հարյուրավոր,
of
եթե
them
ոչ
have
հազարավոր
reduced
վարորդներ
or lost some points.
կասեցվել է իրենց վարորդական
Actually, you don't see it, but
6 ամսով
hundreds or even thousands of drivers have had their driver's license suspended because of the points. We have some drivers who have been criminally prosecuted already, and it is an ongoing process. And we need to talk about this more so that other drivers can see what they should expect if they do this kind of things that are wrong. So I urge all the drivers to follow traffic rules properly, because they are not wearing the seat belts for the state or for police officers. They do it for their own life.
Thank you so much. And we are a country with rich wine industry, but we also can walk, not meaning that we can enjoy the richness of our country, but we should be walking, we should be using the public transport, and we have also a developed infrastructure of other means of transportation, so that not really drinking and driving. And you mentioned it really very importantly, that probably in the campaign, Mr. Shahinian, you could be using some of the components of how the drivers are being, say, penalized for not following the rule, and it's part of the greater culture again. So thank you very much for that. I want to really turn back to Mr. Pleshniger on this one point. The road safety, it's of key importance, and yet there is not that much discourse in the country. And it's definitely not the first thing that comes to the minds of policymakers or the development partners in our country. With your EU hat, could you please give us the background, what has served as the driver for funding this project, for investing this much in the road safety of our country?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I would like to reiterate that road safety is actually explicitly mentioned in that SEPA agreement that entered into force recently. And the EU, together with European Investment Bank and European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, they actually signed this memorandum that will enable Armenia to benefit from 4.25 million euros for the road safety. And it tackles various aspects of the road safety, including dealing with so-called black spots where many accidents were reported, and it serves to improve the road safety for cars, for pedestrians, providing passive safety elements like the guardrails and so on. I mean, the reason for that, there are various reasons. Some of them are very much related to the fact that, as it was a couple of times mentioned, for the young people, the road accidents are the main cause of death and heavy injuries. And it is really very sad when those young lives are being wasted. But we do it also for, let's say, utilitarian purpose. Before COVID, new flight routes were being opened. Many new tourists from Europe were coming. And of course, we don't want our citizens to die or get injured unnecessarily when it takes very little to improve the road safety. So we are really interested in investing in improving road safety. And it's not only about this project, but we also deal with the study on Sisian-Kajaran road, for example, in the south. And we know that not only Goris-Kapan road has been a bit dangerous in the past, but now it's unfortunately very much related to the war and to the fact that the road zigzags through undefined territory, I would say. We also support the refurbishment of crossing points to Iran in Mehri. So we have been dealing with road safety issues for a while. We are also very happy that some of the member states are active in that respect, like Lithuania, and talking about my former hat, also the Czech Republic. But in general, I would say that the road safety sometimes is being underestimated in mutual relations between the countries. Sometimes we talk about only cooperation, development assistance in terms of grants and loans and so on. But road safety is important for everyone. And as I said, not only for the inhabitants of Armenia, but also for tourists, for the businesses, for the truck drivers who are coming to your country. So there is this aspect on our side, why we want to support the road safety. And I have to say that this amount of funding, over 4 million of euros, is quite significant. And we are happy that the government has been actually improving the road infrastructure in the country. But on road safety itself, of safety of those roads, more needs to be done. And some of the topics have already been mentioned here. So that's the main reason for our support.
And it also educating the drivers a lot with the exchange of the experience of the EU member states. I believe if one is knowledgeable and well-educated driver in Armenia, driving in an EU member state, it's such a pleasure. So I'm very much hopeful that we're going to have that in our country very soon. Mr. Shahinyan, I would like you to maybe conclude our main part before we go through the recommendations and probably knowing the questions that we might have online. You have extensive experience in working with the civil society, with the population on the policy field. And we've today discussed a lot the part of education, about educating the young, but the difficult part, the grown-ups who constitute the biggest population of our drivers, is probably the hardest. And along with the drivers, I really want to go back to the pedestrians, because the pedestrians, we oftentimes believe that the pedestrian is not an issue, while it is. We see people crossing roads wherever they like. So could you please say what has worked in Armenia in terms of educating the adults? And what would you think could be a good experience that we could probably consider to look through and adopt, approximate from the EU in our country?
Thank you. Very good question, by the way. I need to say that, first of all, we need to accept that everyone is equal in front of the rules or law. And pedestrians need to know that if they violate, they could be punished the same way as drivers, because all of us, whether we're driver, passenger, or a pedestrian, we are road user, and we are all responsible for whatever happens on the roads. And I can bring you an example from 2009. Why I'm bringing this example, and I will later on describe why, and this is another good news that I want to share, was that the strategy was actually approved by the government with the action plan, and it incorporated the seat belts, the third-party insurance, the speed cameras, whatever we have now, it was planned in that action plan, which been implemented, and we got the reduction in fatalities. But one part was the pedestrians violating the rules. And I need to know that by that time, everybody was thinking how to punish a pedestrian, because Armenia is the country, from a positive way, indeed free, because we are not obliged to take with us any IDs. But to write a penalty, you need to have an ID, which means that if you stop a pedestrian, you need to take a pedestrian to a police station for the identification of personality. And can you imagine a lady or an old man with bags crossing the street not in a proper place and taken to the police station with the grandchild, for example, whoever. And this was a real dilemma, how to overcome this. And it was done, by the way. And it took, I believe it was like a couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks only, but the huge number of people appearing in the police stations. And you know what? That in 1 month time, everyone was crossing the streets in a proper place. No one was violating for another 2-3 months. And this was due to the road police. I need to use this opportunity to thank them, because they are in front of all the activities. They are taking the blames, They are taking the thanks, usually the blames, unfortunately. But they're doing their job. And due to that, we justified that this is not a mentality issue. This is nothing. It's just hitting to the pocket and also making people nervous. And as you correctly mentioned, probably I would say this is called a French model, hitting to the pocket. French has two things. Probably Brits would not like this, but they have two things, which is one is hitting to the pocket in road safety, I mean. And another is the roundabout. The quantity of roundabouts in France is, I think, the hugest, which is also very safe. So I think these two things that if we can take, it will definitely make the change. But in other words, what I want to stress out is that we need joint efforts from all the stakeholders. You cannot only educate pedestrians or drivers and wait that everything will be safe. You cannot penalize the drivers and having safer roads. You cannot not pay attention to the vehicles and having a very good vehicles on the roads. So it's a complex of issues. And to come up with this solution, and this is what I wanted to share and probably would help also to the questions which would to come, is that at the moment, luckily I'm part of the team which are designing the National Road Safety Strategy and the Action Plan for 2020-2040, which we started in 19. And it covers almost all the issues raised here with the specific targets and timelines. And I need to say that the target in reduction of fatalities is 50% in 10 years' time. To 2030, Armenia has to come up with 50% of reduction in fatalities, halving down the road accidents and the injuries. This is a very ambitious number, but it is possible, and we are, as a UN member country, we are kind of assigned under this to do. But nevertheless, what is unique and interesting, and I think might be of interest to the public, is that Armenia is inheriting the Vision Zero strategy and the safe system approach. And I want to concentrate a little bit on a safe system approach, which means that you may have a very good pedestrian, for example. You may have a very good driver or a very good vehicle. But we need to think that we are all human beings and we tend to make mistakes. You may not be drunk, but you may be tired. You might be under, I don't know, a medicine and you drive. It's your fault, of course, but you did it. Now, this mistake should not come up with an accident and should not bring to a fatality, to your fatality as a driver, to your passengers, or to the pedestrian. And that is the reason why we call it a safe system approach, which is now very popular in all European countries. And it takes the measures that if accident happens, it would not bring to a fatality, even if the accident may not happen. And these are the engineering solutions. These are also the education, of course. And these are all different measures which are necessary to make sure that the accident will not happen. But if it happens, it will not bring to a fatality.
Mr. Shanyan, maybe for the commoners like me, you could explain what an efficient zero system is?
Vision Zero is to tackle the zero fatalities on the road, which means this is a blueprint, let's say so, which makes you as a government or as a stakeholder, let's say so, because we all are, as I said, road users. For us, we should not stand for any one fatality because it is preventable. I mean, if you cross only on a zebra place, for example, or a place which is accordingly placed for crossing, and if the vehicle would be safer with the active and passive safety, for example, now you all should know that we have Euro NCAP system of assessment of the cars, which is very popular in all almost countries, which gives the steering. And the steering are now not only relates to the occupants of the cars, but also to the pedestrians. And you may see the design of the new cars, it's a bit different because it allocates some space between the, in the place of the engine is located. It is used for if the car hits the pedestrian, it won't kill the pedestrian. It has some amortization
place.
Which still means the pedestrian has to be careful.
Of course, but the thing is that we need to think of, it could happen. I mean, we are not insured from this because mistakes are taking place. The black spot that was very correctly mentioned by Jan, and government is undertaking this. This is very essential thing. The black spot, it's a terminology, and let me describe it as well, that it means the places where the accident occurred. And you can evaluate those places to later on to bring some engineering changes in when you renovate or reconstruct the road. But also there are another spots which are called hotspots. These are the places which you can evaluate within the community, because the places where accident did not happen yet, but there is a risk to happen. So when we come to this, and this is all mentioned in the strategy and the action plan, we talk about the road assessment programs. Different assessment programs, one of which is the road safety audit. And I need to say that Armenia was first in the CIS countries which got it. But we are now only developing the mechanism how to do it. It's always done through the donor-funded roads. I mean, all roads which are funded through EIB or ADB or others, World Bank, they're doing the road safety, but our local funding is not. And this is another measure how to find and identify the black spots. And I think we are on a very right direction. And this strategy and action plan, I very much hope that will be approved very soon in the very, very coming future, because it's almost done. And now in 2 weeks' time, it will be reviewed finally by the government, by all stakeholders, and it will come to force, hopefully, I don't know, maybe after elections or before elections.
Looking forward to making sure that the roads are safer and that it becomes part of the public discourse as well, because of its importance. So there's a magic team behind the scenes that has organized this event. And if there are any questions, I'd ask maybe to raise them, please.
Hi, we have no questions so far from the online audience. So I would like to invite the online audience to pose any questions that they might have. However, I have a very provocative question to a male panel talking about road safety. It's basically, I also checked the statistics, and they show that in 2018, out of thousands of accidents that happened in Armenia on the roads, only 44 out of them were caused by female drivers. Now, we can argue with the biology that female by nature take lesser risks, so they are less prone to break the rules. We can also argue by the fact that there are less female drivers in Armenia, which is possible, but they still, even taking this fact into account, there is a huge disparity in the number of accidents that are caused by women and that are caused by men. Like this?
Yes.
Right, so there's still, I can shout. So there are still huge disparities in this sense. Now, Pogos mentioned that there's no mentality issue, that the study shown that there are no mentality issues in Armenia regarding obeying these rules. Now, Sergey mentioned that there might be something, it might be cultural. So my question is, how can we address this? Do we need any special measures targeting male drivers? Or what do we need to do about this? And you know, as by the way, I didn't introduce myself, Susanna from the EU delegation. When you are a policymaker, you always look at the root, at the causes of the problem, so you can address them. So where it all started. So also, my question is, why is it so, and how can we address it? Thank you.
So whoever maybe would like, yes, please go ahead.
Shall I start?
Sure.
Okay, the very good question, and the first reaction would be, well, do we want to increase the number of females in those fatalities and reduce men? I think it's good that it's less, and I think the most important, you mentioned correctly, is that female drivers are much less than men drivers, fortunately or unfortunately. But I think the trend is that it's becoming even equal, and probably in a year or 2 years' time, we'll have more women drivers, which is only welcomed, of course. But I think also it may be, I feel the sense in the question that that men might be more passionate in driving, more aggressive drivers, and that's why maybe accidents might happen more. Well, this might be a case, yes. And the thing is that for having a proper answer to this type of question, we need a data. And this is a very essential thing, which is also, by the way, mentioned in the strategy is to have a very accomplished data to be able to analyze all the aspects. And today, I know that the road police is working on creating a new software, which is very welcomed. And first time in Armenia, we would have an electronic data, which will give possibility to evaluate all the details of the accident. And maybe this is not directly the answer to your question, but I need to say, for example, when we have a black spot, for example, the accident where it happened and registered, this does not mean that the cause of that accident is that place. We need to investigate and find a place where it started, the car, the brake, for example, where it started, as an example, which is not available. And this brings us to all the evaluation data that we can evaluate, whether the reason was the gender, or the reason was the vehicle situation, or the reason was the curve of the road, and everything like that. In regards to the women, I think the Armenia is, and probably the road police would say better, but they are not only equal, women with the men, but even have more rights. Yes. I need to say, so less fatalities, but more rights, in a sense, being on the road. And I think Armenian men are always gentlemen and always giving the way to women, in spite of the situation.
Absolutely, but before you would, please, yes, Mr. Haramian, but I need to say this, because that, I started to drive about maybe 16, 17 years ago, and there were very few women on the roads. Now, of course, there are more women, but still we see that there is the rumor in the air that the women are not the best drivers. And I have to strongly disagree again. This is an anecdotal evidence that the drivers we do not have as Armenian drivers, independent of gender. We don't have patience and tolerance. And I wouldn't say that we give away to each other. So maybe we can have another explanation to what's the situation. Please, Mr. Haramian.
Yes, ձեր ընդհանրապես համակարծիք եմ եւ իհարկե պարոն Շանյանը նշեց, որ այս բանի բազայի ծրագրային համակարգն է ստեղծում, որ ավելի մեծ հետաքննությունների հետաքննությունների բազա կհանդիսանա, որպեսզի ավելի լավ թվեր հանենք, այսպես ասեմ, այն ինչ որ նշեց 45%, բայց ավելի հիմնավոր լինի, թե ինչից 45% եւ այլ։ Ես պետք է գովասանքի խոսքեր ասեմ մեր հարգելի կանանց նկատմամբ, որովհետև կանայք միգուցե ես վթարների ավելի շատ մասնակից են դառնում, բայց իրենց մեղքով կամ իրենց մասնակցության վթարները ավելի քիչ վտանգավոր եւ վնասակար հետևանքներ են ունենում, այսինքն զոհեր կամ վիրավորներ ավելի քիչ են լինում, շատ կտրուկ անգամ, շատ անգամներ քիչ են լինում, քան տղամարդիկ վթարվելու դեպքում։ Եվ որպես հետևանք, եթե չեմ սխալվում, զոհերի կեսը միջինում 20-ից մինչև 35 տարեկան տղամարդիկ են, դա այսպես ասեմ երթևեկության կանոնների գիտելիքների հստակ ցուցիչ է, կամ թե ինչպես են թեկուզ եթե գիտեն, թե ինչպես են իրենք կիրառում երթևեկության մեջ, եւ մեր կանայք, մեր վարորդ կանայք շատ ավելի զգուշավոր են, միգուցե նաեւ վախկոտ են, շատ ավելի պատասխանատու են, շատ ավելի կանոնները կիրառում են երթևեկության մեջ, քան համարտ վարորդները, բայց լինում են նաև իհարկե չափազանցություններ դեպի վատը, շատ խախտումներ տեսնում ենք, որ կինը շատ տրամաբանությունից դուրս խախտումներ անում, բայց դրանք մասնավոր դեպքեր են, այն մասնավոր է, ես չեմ ամբողջի վրա չեմ կարող ագծել եւ կարող են այդպես պատահել եւ ընդհանուր առմամբ ես նորից վերադառնալով իմ նախկին ասացի եւ այս հարցի շուրջ ես պետք է նշեմ, որ վարորդների գործող վարորդների կեսից ավելին մեջ մինչեւ մեկ խախտում է իրականացնում եւ դա իհարկե մենք միշտ թեման այնպեսին է, որ մենք խախտումներն ենք ավելի շատ քննարկում, բայց վարորդների կեսից ավելին խախտումներ չեն իրականացնում կամ մեկ խախտում են անում, դա Այն լավն է, որ այսօր
Half
ունենք,
of the drivers
եւ
do
միգուցե
not
այդ թիվը
violate
մի
traffic
փոքր
rules
ավելի
or do
բարձր է,
only one
բայց
violation, which is a
վարորդների
good
մինչև
thing that we
10%-ն է,
can
որ
focus on.
հաճախակի
But only
ռեգուլյար խախտումներ
10%
են
of
տալիս,
drivers
բայց
who regularly
10%-ը
violate traffic rules.
իրենք ավելի շատ են ակնհայտ դառնում, աչքի
But
են
these
դնում
10%
եւ ավելի
are
շատ
much
են
more
իրենք
visible,
հենց նույնիսկ
obvious,
խախտում անելու համար երթևեկում եւ մեզ թվում է թե այո դա վատ է
and we
ընդհանուր
think
առմամբ
that the
վատ, բայց
situation
պետք է
is
ասեմ
really,
որ
really bad.
մեծամասամբ լավ է,
For
դա
the
հենց այն է, որ
most
օրինակ
part,
մարդիկ կան, որ 10 տարի վթար չեն ունենում,
have
10 տարի
people
մեքենային
who
վարում հենց
haven't
Երևանի մեջ,
violated
նույնիսկ
any rules.
տաքսի
We
են
have
քշում,
people who've
տարվա
been
մեջ մեկ
driving a
խախտում են
taxi
անում եւ
for
իրենք
10
հստակ
years
գիտակցում
in
են այդ բանին, որ
Yerevan and
իրենք դա
only
արել
have
են։
done one
Այսինքն
violation
հնարավոր
of
է
rules, and
վարել
they know
մեքենա
full well that they
առանց
did it.
խախտումների,
So it is
առանց
possible to
վթարների,
drive
առանց
without
վատ
breaking traffic
հետևանքների
rules, without
եւ անկախ
car
նրանից
accidents,
գինես
without
թե
bad
տղամարդ
consequences,
եւ նորից
regardless
գալով
of whether you are a
կանանց
man
հետ
or a
կապված այդ
woman.
հարցին,
Going
դա
back to the
պարզապես
question about the women,
ստատիստիկա է,
it's just statistics.
բայց սպասենք մի քանի տարի
But let's
այդ
wait a few
այդ
years
ծրագրային համակարգը կլինի եւ
to
տեսնենք
get more
արդյոք իրենք են
information
մեղավոր
and to see
կամ արդյոք
who is
այլ
at
երրորդ,
fault if an
այսինքն
accident
երրորդ պատճառ
happens.
չի եղել, որ մեղավոր են եղել։
Because
Ես ասում եմ,
it was a third
եթե նայենք
party involved,
վթարների
for
քանակով,
example. If you
օրական
look at the number of
Երևանում
accidents,
մոտավորապես եմ ասում, փոքր վթարներ են լինում, մինչև 50-60 փոքր վթարներ,
there's
որոնք
about
ճանապարհային
50 or
ոստիկանություն
60
չեն հաշվարկվում։
small accidents that do not even get
Դա
reported to the police
հիմնականում
in
կանայք
Yerevan.
են,
The
բայց իրենց
majority of them are
վթարների
women.
հետևանքները փոքրիկ լույս
But the
ամբողջկա
consequences
ինչ-որ
of
մի
these
փոքր գիծ է լինում։
accidents are
Դա
very,
թող
very,
այդպես
very
լինի,
minor.
զոհեր չունեն
And let it be that way.
շնորհակալություն
So
իրենց
let
եւ
them not have any
իրենք
victims.
ամեն դեպքում իրենք շատ ավելի
But in any
պատասխանատու են
case,
վարում,
they
քան
drive much
տղամարդիկ։
more responsibly than men.
Mr. Platzenberg would like to.
Just a small remark, first of all. What Susanna mentioned struck me at the beginning of this discussion once we sat down. I mean, Arabic is a moderator. All the audience, the physical audience here are women, and the panelists are only men. Then I realized I'm a man too, although I'm sure that Susanna would be as qualified as me to talk about road safety. So apologies for that. One anecdotal evidence of mine. When I landed at Zvartnots airport last time, I think in November, I called a taxi driver via an app, and the taxi driver who appeared had his hand broken and fixated in plaster. And I asked him in Russian, actually, sorry for my Armenian, that is not so good, but I asked him in Russian, how is he going to drive? And his answer made me defenseless. He said in Russian, "Ya mushina iz Hayastana." I'm a man from Armenia. You know? So I didn't want to deprive him of his income, but he indeed had driven in a way that he was steering with his steering wheel with one hand and then changing the gear with the same hand. So I even offered him to change the gear for him. And by the way, his seatbelts didn't work, of course. So that is sort of embodiment of my experience with Yerevan taxi male drivers, I should say. And the other day I was actually having a taxi with a female driver, first time in my life in Yerevan, and it was a very good experience. So I want to support Susanna in her remark.
Yes, and I really want to hope, thank you for that remark. And I really would like to hope that law abidance, careful and responsible driving has no gender as its core. It's about the responsible citizenship and responsible global citizenship as well. So do we have any questions online?
Not yet. I still would like to encourage, we have many people that are watching us, not questions yet. So I would like to encourage everyone. I have more. Andrea, by the way, feel free to jump in. Question to Jan and to Evaldas, because Evaldas, you mentioned that there are three aspects that you're concentrating on in Armenia: people, roads, and vehicles. Roads, I agree, infrastructure is a completely different topic, so we don't need to touch it at the moment. You mentioned that we need to educate people and prepare drivers responsibly, and we need to care about the technical quality of the vehicles. Are there any specific measures that you haven't seen in Lithuania or in Czech Republic? Because essentially Czech Republic 10 years ago, I'm from Slovakia, it was very, very similar. Wasn't the best either. It improved. Were there any specific measures that helped in Czech Republic and in Lithuania that you haven't seen being implemented in Armenia yet that could be helpful?
Well, talking about these two segments, so people and vehicles, the quality, the technical situation of a vehicle is very important. So let's say in 90s in Lithuania, we had lots of cars which were like 15, 20 years old. So naturally, they are not of that good quality to assure the safety when they are driven. So now we have this regulation that the car supposedly should be not older than 10 years old when it's used on the roads. So this is key, and there is also a possibility to check the car, and if a car does not match the technical requirements, it just can be taken out of a circulation by the decision of inspection. So I think this contributed a lot to accidents on the roads in general. Then preparing the drivers, I think, is also a very essential part because we have this regulation that the beginner driver is for 2 years period, and there are much stricter rules applied to this category. So 0 alcohol when driving, looking for not overspeeding certain speed on the roads and so on. So these regulations we truly contribute to decreasing of accidents. And then we are human beings, so we are naturally afraid of fines and penalties. This is another important measure to be applied. Let's say in Lithuania, as an example, drunk driving, we have this norm of 0.4 per mils, which is, so to say, allowed for the experienced driver older than 2 years of experience. And if you are caught with more than 0.4, so your license is suspended for 1 year at least, and the fine is approximately 1,000 euros. So I think it's more or less efficient to prevent from drunk driving. So, and of course, there are many other rules and applications.
If I may jump in, the Czech experience is very similar to Lithuanian, so I would only repeat what Evaldas mentioned, but I want to make a more general point as a representative of European Union. When the inhabitants and experts in Europe were being asked in which cities the quality of life is the best in the European Union, very often 2 cities came as good examples, Vienna and Copenhagen, because of excellent public transport and because one category that hasn't been mentioned yet, many people use bicycles for commuting to work. Now, of course, in Yerevan conditions, this would have been much more difficult because of the hilly terrain and because of the weather, which could be grueling in summer. But still, I have to say Prague is also quite hilly, not as Yerevan, but quite hilly. And more people are actually using bicycles or even electric bicycles to go to work. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody has the physical strength or doesn't want to get sweaty when he or she gets to work. But it's astonishing that the percentages of bicycle use is really one of the highest in Vienna, in Copenhagen, in Berlin. And in the same time, these cities, they have one of the best systems of the public transport. And there is a sort of a saying that the perception of the city as being rich is not to be measured by how many people have Mercedeses or BMWs, On the contrary, how many people use the public transport and bicycles to move around? Because these cities are able to create the conditions for usage of public transport and bicycles. So in that respect, this is maybe a sort of recommendation to Yerevan authorities to also pay attention to these aspects. There are these repressive measures that Evaldas mentioned, that were mentioned also before, in terms of education of the drivers, not only by education as such, but by introducing the point system, by the road cameras, police measuring whether the driver used alcohol or not. That is, of course, all very important. But in the same time, other measures that would support usage of other means of transport than cars need to be introduced. And then naturally the number of deaths and injuries caused by the traffic accident will decrease. So this I would really see as quite important for future.
Yes, we apparently have more questions.
Quite a few at the moment. So I would ask the panelists to answer them briefly. First question is from Armenia. What is being done to reduce the number of vehicles on the roads? Because I think it was Pogos or Sergei mentioned that the number of the accidents is much higher now due to the number of the vehicles on the roads. So shall we reduce the number of the vehicles on the road, or what is being done about this so that this is not the major cause of the accidents?
Please.
Ուրեմն մեքենաների թվի նվազեցման մասով դեռևս ոչ մի քննարկում չի եղել, բայց քանի որ խոսքը գնաց տրանսպորտային միջոցների մասով, մոտ 2 տարի առաջ մենք այդպես ռևոլյուցիոն էին բարել, որ Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում 70 թե 72% 15 եւ ավելի տարիներ ավտոմեքենաներ։ Այսինքն դա նույնպես նպաստում է ՃՏՊ-ների ճանապարհատրանսպորտային պատահարների
leads to higher number of road accidents.
Եթե չեմ սխալվում, այդ տոկոսների մեջ 5%-ներ, որ նոր ներմուծված տրանսպորտային միջոցներ
5% of these cars were just imported into the country.
Եվ նախորդ հարցի մասով, հա, կին վարորդների մասով անդրադառնալ 2021 թվականի հունվարից վարորդական վկայական ստանալու քննությունը Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում խստացվել է, 10 հարցի փոխարեն դարձվել է 20 հարց, եւ B եւ B կատեգորիան պարտադիր իրական պայմաններում են վարում, կատեգորիաները եւ ավտոդրոմներում եւ իրական պայմաններում
driving in the city, driving test in the city, and for other categories
տեսական քննությունների ժամանակ կին վարորդները ավելի լավ են իրենց դրսևորում, քան գործնական քննությունների ժամանակ
score better than during the actual test driving.
Կան, որոնք որ պետք է վարորդ դառնան 1, 2, 3, ինչու՞ նաև 4 անգամ գործնական քննություն տալուց հետո նոր կարողանում են վարորդական վկայական
There is the underlying cultural thing that sons learn driving in Armenia earlier than daughters do. So I'm guessing this is where this is coming from.
I agree with you.
Տղաները երևի թե իրենց ծնողներն են ժամանակին դպրոցահասակ երեխաները, նույն դպրոցահասակ տարիներից ես գյուղերում, հակերում կարող է սովորեցնել դրա համար ավելի հեշտ են
Which is unlawful, and it has also to be considered in terms of law enforcement, so ensuring equality and equity also for men and women. Any more questions?
And that leads us to a very good question, next question, and a very good question having the head of the road police in here. Do you think that the police is being strict enough with people who are breaking the rules? The question in the discussion is especially about wearing the seat belts, but I would address it more generally. Is the police strict enough currently in Armenia to people who break the current rules that are in place?
մի բան փաստենք, որ ամեն խաչմերուկում հնարավոր չէ ոստիկան կանգնեցնել, որ վարորդը խախտում չանի, երևի թե դա բոլորս համամիտ ենք։ Այսինքն, պետք է բոլորը, հետիոտն, վարորդ, ուղևոր, բոլորս մեր վրա պետք է աշխատենք, որպեսզի խախտում չանեն։ Մեր տեսադաշտում, երբ որ դուրս են գալու փողոց, արդեն բոլորս տեսնում ենք այդ խախտում անողը, թե հետիոտնին, թե վարորդին, ինչու՞ չէ նաև ուղևորին, չամրակապված վիճակում։ Իհարկե, ոստիկանությունը ամբողջությամբ չի կարող այդ իր տեսադաշտում պահել, բայց երևի թե հուլիսի առաջի կեսին Երևան քաղաքում արդեն բարեկային ծառայությունը, որը որ ներկայահին դասընթացներն է անցկացվում, արդեն Երևան քաղաքում ենք տեսնենք առաջի բարեկային ծառայության տրանսպորտային միջոցների իրենց ծառայողներով, որոնք որ ավելի շատ կլինեն եւ ավելի նոր կրթություն ստացած այս բարդ դուրս կգան ծառայության, ինձ թվում է այդ ժամանակ ավելի տեսանելի կլինի ծառայությունը։
Ես մի փոքր ավելացնեմ, պարոն Կարապետյան, ես նաև հանդիսանալով Հայաստանի Հանրապետության ոստիկանության հանրային խորհրդի անդամ եւ հասարակության կողմից ներկայացված լինելով, պարոն Կարապետյանի հետ ասեմ մի փոքր իր ասածը ընդլայնեմ, ես լինելով նաև վարորդ ի սկզբանե, ես գիտակցել եմ, որ իմ մեջքի ետևում ոստիկան չի նստելու իմ մեքենայի մեջ եւ ես ամրագոտին եմ գցում, մեքենան վարում եմ, չեմ ալկոհոլ չեմ օգտագործում մինչեւ մեքենայի ղեկին եւ իմը ստացվում է եւ այո լինելով եթե օրինակ ունենք 600,000 տրանսպորտային միջոց անհնար է որ մենք ունենանք 600,000 ճանապարհային ոստիկան, որ բոլորին հետևեն։ Մյուս կողմից նույնիսկ անմտություն է, որ ճանապարհային ոստիկանությունը ուզենա բոլոր իրավախախտումներին տուգանել։ Միևնույն է չի կարողանալու։ Երբեք չի կարող պատահել այդպեսի նույնիսկ եթե միգուցե մեկ վարորդ լինի ամբողջ Հայաստանում։ Եվ առաջին հերթին վարորդը պետք է ինքը գիտակցի, որ ինքը հասուն մարդ է, ինքը քննություն է տվել, ստացել է վարորդական եւ ինքը ունի պատասխանատվություն, ունի իրավունքներ որպես վարորդ եւ ունի պատասխանատվություն, որը խախտելու համար կարող է տուգանվել։ Եվ այդ պատասխանատվությունից ելնելով մենք նստում ենք մեքենայի ղեկին եւ երթևեկում ենք, որքան էլ թեկուզ հիմա բարեկային ծառայությունը կներդրվի, բնականաբար իրենք 100,000-ներ չեն լինելու։ Ինչքան երկրի բյուջեն է, դրան համարժեք ինչ-որ կարգախմբեր լինելու են։ Բայց նաև պետք է այսօրվա դրությամբ նաև դիտարկել այն, որ մեր երկրում ամեն ինչ հաս չէ, ցույցեր են տեղի ունենում կորոնավիրուսային համաճարակի հետ կապված աշխատանքներ ալվում, ճանապարհային ոստիկանություն իր բուն պատականություններից դուրս նաև ուղեկցումներ, այդ դիմակների վերահսկման գործընթացին է մասնակցում, ղեկավար կազմի պաշտոնյաների ավտոշարությունների ուղեկցումներ եւ երթևեկության անվտանգության վերահսկման ֆունկցիան, որը որ ի սկզբանե պետք է իրականացներ ճանապարհային ոստիկանությունը, ֆունկցիոնալ մասով ելնելով վերադասի հանձնարարականներից լիարժեք չի կարողանում իրականացնել օբյեկտիվ եւ սուբյեկտիվ պատճառներով։ Իսկ վերադառնալով այն, որ տեսուչները լինում միգուցե անպատասխանատու են, իրենց դիմաց կարող են լինել, նման դեպքերը պարոն Կարապետյանը ճանապարհային ոստիկանությունը բաց են եւ մենք մշտապես թերությունները մատնանշել ենք եւ հետեւական են եղել այդ դեպքերը, որտեղ այո կարող են լինել նման բաներ, եթե կան իրավախախտ վարորդներ, կան նաեւ իրավախախտ կամ ոչ իր լիազորությունները պատշաճ իրականացնող պետական ծառայողներ։ Նույնն է նաեւ ոստիկանություն դա կելված չի, այսպես ասեմ, ներողություն, դա չի կարող իդեալական վերանա մի օրվա մեջ եւ նման դեպքերը կարող են եւ ապագայում են կլինեն, որովհետեւ վերջի վերջո մարդը սխալվող է, ինչպես պարոն Շահինյանը, եւ վերահսկողությունը նրա համար է, որպեսզի երկրորդ, երրորդ անգամ նման դեպքերը չկրկնվեն։
I think this is such an important remark that road police, it's not about penalty, it's about safety. And this is the key thing, and I think our EU colleagues would probably second this, that we need to, as the citizens of Armenia, that we all take responsibility in the safety of our roads, we need to know that police is there to ensure our safety rather than penalize for whatever reasons it can be. Yes, please.
Yes, just to add on the top of this, we always think about police, as you said, as someone with a stick on our hands. But of course, this is not true. But we need, as I mentioned before, is that for example, if it relates to the speed management, which is essential part of the road safety, we need to think that people would still overspeed in spite of anything. It might be, I don't know, tired, or might be just got a new car and wants to speed up. But there are lots of engineering measures. So we should not forget about the road infrastructure, which artificially lows down your speed. Especially, I want to raise this during this panel, in front of the schools. I think this must be a priority for all of us to reduce the speed in front of schools. There is a trend now in European countries, and this is taking place in almost countries. It's done already. Even it's wider, not only school, but in urban areas. But we're talking in our case only in school zones, to reduce the speed to make it 30 kilometers per hour. And why 30? And this is because this is the safest speed possible, in spite of what condition the car is. If it hits pedestrian, there definitely won't be any fatality. There might be a serious injury if the car is not in a proper manner kept, or it's an old and irony car. But in most cases, it will be just a slight injury, if there will be something. But in most cases, there will be nothing. So I think that kids for us is much more important. But to reduce, for example, this brought as an example, but to reduce, to make sure that driver will not speed up over the 30, you need to make some artificial engineering measures to, when reaching the school zone, the speed is slowed.
So maybe mindful of time, we could take the very last question from the audience and then conclude.
We have one more, but we also have Andrea, if she wants to, yeah. Another question is what is being done with regards, it was touched upon a bit, what is being done with regards to pedestrians crossing the roads at the wrong point? I just would like to add something, because it's very easy to blame those who break the rules. But comparing to Europe, also the number of pedestrian crossings in Armenia, it's lesser. And that can prompt the pedestrians to cross to, you know, if you have to make a detour of 10 minutes or you can cross now, you would cross now, very logically. So yeah, the question is what is being done to limit the pedestrians to cross the roads where there is no pedestrian crossing? And I just wanted to point out that there are not that many pedestrian crossings as we are used to, for example, in Europe.
Anyone? This is the hardest question. I know that leads to the infrastructure development.
Ենթակառուցվածքների հետ կապված է, պարոն Շանյանը իհարկե ասեց քիչ առաջ, խնդիրը պետք է ինժեներական լուծումներով տրվի։ Վերջերս Երևան քաղաքում մենք ունեցել ենք վթար 15 կվարտալ դեպի Աշտարակի խճուղի դուրս գալացող հատվածում, առաջարկություն է արվել Երևանի քաղաքապետարանին, այդ հատվածում բետոնե արգելապատնեշներ են դրվել, ինչ վերաբերում է ընդհանրապես հետիոտնի շարժը կարգավորելու համար, անապարհային ոստիկանությունը դիմել է Երևանի քաղաքապետարանին, որպեսզի հնարավորինս ինժեներական լուծումներ տրվի, որ հետիոտնը ցանկացած վայրով չանցնի, այսինքն մոտենա խաչմերուկին, որ հնարավորություն լինի անցնելու։ Երևանի քաղաքապետարանը արդեն, եթե չեմ սխալվում, Մոսկովյան եւ մի քանի փողոցներ, այտենց հստակ հիմա փողոցների աներկա դժվարանամասը, մի քանի փողոցներում սկսել է ինժեներական շղթաների միջոցով, թե երկաթի արգելապատնեշների միջոցով, որպեսզի թույլ չտա այդ նշված վայրերից անցնելու։ Ինչ է նաեւ պետք է այդ հատվածները բուսականության միջոցով, այսինքն տնկեն գազոններ, որպեսզի թույլ չտա մարդուն այդ
would then
հատվածում
prevent
անցնելը։
people from crossing
Կա
the
շատ
street
լավ
in
լուծումներ
that
կա,
way.
որ պետք է
There's some
արվի,
very good
Լուծանով
solutions
հաստատ համոզված եմ, որ
that
հետիոտնի
should be
շարժը
done and can be done,
նշված
and I
վայրով
will
կարգելվի,
regulate
ու եթե
pedestrian traffic.
համեմատական վերցնենք հետիոտնի եւ վարորդի, ասեմ երևի թե այսօր մեր մոտ վարորդը ավելի կարգապահ քան հետիոտը։
I think drivers are more
Վարորդը
disciplined
հետիոտն
than
սպասում է այն
pedestrians if we
վայրին,
have to
որտեղից որ
compare.
թույլատրված է անցնելու, բայց ցավոք սրտի տեսնում
Because
ենք
the drivers always drive where they are allowed to drive, but pedestrians don't always cross the street where they're allowed to.
Օքեյ ավելացնեմ, այսօր շուրջ 2 ժամ է խոսում ենք եւ հիմնական թեմաները, որոնք որ ծավալվում են, միշտ սլաքներ ուղղում ենք ճանապարհային ոստիկանության, բայց ես նորից ուզում եմ կամ իրավական տեսանկյունից ճանապարհային ոստիկանությունը ինքը պետք է վերահսկողություն իրականացնի, միայն վերահսկելը։ Եվ նաեւ սա մեր պետական խնդիրներից է նաեւ, որ մենք ունենք ընդհանուր առմամբ մեկ պետական մարմին, որը որ նաեւ այս հարցերի կարգավորմամբ կզբաղվի։ Ճանապարհային ոստիկանությունը այս նման հարցերով դիմում է քաղաքապետարան, եթե Երևանի մեջ է։ Երևանից դուրս շատ ավելի բարդ է խնդիրները գյուղապետարան, համայնքապետարան, մարզպետարան եւ այդ հարցերը շատ ժամանակ մինչեւ վերջնակետը չեն հասնում, ել չեմ ասում լուծվելու եւ կարգավորվելու համար։ Երևանում հեշտ է։ Գոնե նախորդ տարի շուրջ 26 տեղ հետիոտնի կանչով լուսացույցներ տեղադրվեց քաղաքապետարանի օգնությամբ միջոցներով այդ թումբեր են տեղադրվում անվտանգ դարձնելու համար, բայց ընդհանրապես այս հարցերը նրան կանեն, որ պետք է լինել եւ այս մասով պարոն Շանյանը նաեւ այդ աշխատանքային խմբի մաս է կազմում, որ միգուցե ստեղծվի պետական մեկ մարմին, այդ ենթակառուցվածքների ստեղծում, շահագործում եւ վերահսկողություն իրականացնի, որտեղ ամեն ինչ միայն ուղղել ճանապարհային ոստիկանության վրա, գումարել նաև այն, որ իրենք պետք է տուգանեն, թեկուզ եւ ճակերտավոր եմ ասում, եւ այդ պատասխանատվությունը իրար հետ վերցրած, ֆիզիկապես իրանք ուղղակի չեն կարողանալու իրականացնել։ Եվ դրա համար է, որ այո, ենթակառուցվածքները պետք է լինեն եւ ֆիզիկապես մարդու համար դժվար լինի այդ ամենի վրայով անցնել։ Կարող է լինել 1-2 դեպքեր, ես օրինակ Երևան քաղաքի տեսանյութ ունեմ, պահած 76 թվականին Մաշտոցի պողոտայի վրա գետնանցման հենց վերևով, այն ժամանակ էլ գետնանցում եղել է, այնտեղ բարձր երկաթներ էին եւ տեսանյութի մեջ հետիոտնը փողոցը այդ երկաթների ցատկում է եւ նման դեպքեր կլինեն, այնպես չէ որ պետք է բացառել, բայց այո, պետք է հնարավորինս դժվարացնել այն այդ ձևաչափով է հնարավոր, որովհետեւ եթե ուղղակի բաց տարածություն է, ինչ տարբերություն այստեղից թե այնտեղից, միևնույն է, որից է պատասխանատվություն, այսօրվա դրությամբ ասում, պատասխանատվություն միևնույն է չի լինելու, վատագույն դեպքում միգուցե մեքենան խփի։
So I understand there has to be a combination of measures, yes. And it's not just one thing. That would you like please to come in? We have a representative of the Embassy of Romania to Armenia, so please towards the conclusion.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Phillips. I'm working in the Embassy of Romania to Yerevan. I think today regarding road safety, everyone addressed all the issues, and I would like to transmit the experience of Romania. I also remember all the infrastructure investments, the safety roads investments, the sanctions that people didn't really like, the education in schools, when kids were learning the basic rules for the belt, for the speed limit, and they were scolding their parents. That was ultimately, I was one of them. The public transportation investments were a good thing, and I see that even in Armenia, you're going through the same process. Everyone is going through that, and I also remember the shame of both authorities and society when addressing such issues. Because I remember in Romania being an issue of civilization. What if we're not civilized enough? We were looking at the Western Europe and saying, why can't we be with that? So it worked. This shame worked, shame exploitation. But what worked, and especially for people with kids, were the awareness campaigns. The commercials we were seeing on TV, and I'm sure that was the entire Europe's case, with kids dying, literally seeing them die in the commercials. That was touchy, and that was working. But I see here in Armenia a lot of willing from you to improve the road safety, and I hopefully you have the budget to do so. Regarding the men and women driving here, I can say that I've been here for a few months, and my husband hit the car and I didn't. So the only question would be whether you're planning to invest more in this complexity of education and road safety infrastructure, public transportation in the future.
So thank you so much for the question. Maybe we can address the question in the summary, and before giving the floor for your final thoughts, I think this has been one of the most informative panels on the road safety issue. And from the bottom of my heart, and also I believe on behalf of our followers and listeners today, I'd like to thank you for your generosity of sharing your experience, your thoughts, and also the suggestions and whatever has to come. We have a few important takeaways, and it's on so many different layers. First of all, the recommendation is to the general public to use as much public transportation as possible, which also implies that the municipalities, the authorities have to take care of the conditions of the public transportation. The second thing would be maybe use other means of transportation like bicycles. And we know that addressing the post-accident trauma is much more costly for healthcare rather than investing it in the road safety. So again, this is a complex issue that probably has to be addressed from various perspectives. For pedestrians, it's an interesting thing that the reflecting lights, for instance, could be a good solution. In the Baltic states, when I did my PhD, the first thing that I was handed to was the reflector. And this could also be a suggestion to the textile industry, the producers locally, maybe in their production to consider a small, beautiful detail that could reflect the light. And in this manner, maybe, again, reduce the number of fatalities. Then we have a lot of expectations from the law enforcement and from the state institutions. So we know that the law enforcement is an important one in combination with education, targeting the people, and combination with the technical measures to ensure that the vehicles are in good conditions, and of course, investment into the infrastructure. And surely, there has to be also nudges, not only for educating the youngs, but also for adults. And the behavioral experiments, this is an area of possibilities for local NGOs, for development partners to support. So, and it's a great area for the local and for the development community investment. And I believe that the community is very thankful for all of the efforts put in the development in this area. So in your concluding remarks, maybe you could also, addressing the question, also maybe share the final thoughts, the very final thoughts, your wishes or your one important plan that you have in terms of ensuring the safety of road. And I'll ask Mr. Shahinian to start with yourself, if I may, please.
Good. Well, coming back to the question regarding the budget anticipated, we actually anticipate, starting before anticipation, I need to say that we have a road safety, it's also road accidents. It's a cost to the budget. And due to different estimates, it's about 5% of GDP loss, which is a huge number, you can imagine. And investing any amount of money into it and in getting at least to halving down the fatalities would be an enormous investment in a very, very unprecedented return. I mean, in no business you can do such a return, for example, investing about 10 to 20 million. And this is the figure that is planned and it's up to the government to approve, but most of the budget may come from different donor sources. My wish would be, I'm in road safety since 2005, directly involved in as a founder and director of the National Road Safety Council. And my experience showed that what is missing, and always was missing, is the coordination of the IFCs and the donors in road safety. I think the bits which are done, and you heard today the presentation, education is done from one side, for example, from EU-funded project, another is done from the embassy of Lithuania or the World Bank project, which is next, like Sergei is doing. But this should be all directed towards one thing. And I think the gap is, and why it is not coordinated, because the government does not have a strategy. And today, I think we're filling this gap with having a strategy with a specific action plan, with a targeted, with specific time frame. When if donor would like to invest into road safety, would ask the government, where should I do? And government has exact policy to go. I think we are filling this gap, but my wish would be this one, because otherwise overlapping the activities or funding twice the same thing, but with a different direction would not bring us to anywhere. But joint efforts, not only within the government of the stakeholders, as Sergei mentioned, this is the lead agency to be established, and this is part of the key part of the strategy to join all the stakeholders and to have a supervision power and monitoring power and responsibility as a one unit instead of today shared, and which is not shared, just dispersed responsibility, let's say so, but having one shared responsibility. So all of this is the dream of a person who is in road safety for this much years. Thank you. And also, of course, keep safe on the roads, and always bear in mind that you are a road user. You are part of what you are asking. You want to change a traffic light, it's you. It's nobody else, it's you.
Thank you. Excellent point on coordination. That's also a development community has to know. Thank you so much. Mr. Ghahramyan, please, your final thoughts.
Շնորհակալություն, պարոն Շահյանյանի ասածներից հետո դժվար է ինչ-որ բաներ ավելացնել, որովհետև անհարմամբ մենք իրար հետ երկար տարիներ աշխատում ենք եւ մեր այսպես ասեմ տեսլականը եւ հայացքները ընդհանուր առմամբ համընկնում է եւ նույն ուղղությամբ է գնում եւ կարող եմ ասել, որ ինձ այս ոլորտում որպես գործունեություն ոգեշնչում է այդ Vision Zero Շվեդիայի այդ
always inspired by this Vision Zero
Հյուսիսային Եվրոպայի այդ երկրների դրական փորձը, որը որ նաև իշխանությունը եւ Եվրոպայի անդամները տարբեր ձևով տեղաշնում են եւ համապատասխանեցնում են իրենց ամեն երկիր, այսպես ասեմ, իրենց մենթալիտետին, օրենքներին կամ դրությանը, եւ իմ ցանկությունը այն է, որ նման մի համակարգ մեր երկրում լինի, բարձր պատասխանատվությամբ, շատ վերահսկողությամբ եւ սխալների հետևից սխալները չկրկնելու հիման վրա գործող կառույց լինի, որպեսզի եթե X վայրում մեկ ինչ-որ դեպք է տեղի ունեցել, որի հետևանքով X հետևանքները զոհեր կամ վիրավորներ, երկրորդ անգամ այդ հատվածում չպետք է լինի, բացառվի, ուղղակի բացառվի, հնարավոր եւ միգուցե նաեւ անհնարին մեթոդներով։ Հիմնական դա ես նելով ճարտարապետ, դա իշխանական կառույցներն են, որոնք պետք է հնարավորություն չստեղծեն, որպեսզի մարդը սխալվի։ Մեր երկիրը լինելով նաեւ խորհրդային երկրի մաս, մի փոքր ուռճացվել է այն գաղափարը, որ մարդը ինքը չպետք է երբեք սխալվի, բայց գալով ավելի դրական փորձը տեսնելով Շվեդիայի, իրենց եւ այդ իրենց պետական կառույցների ղեկավարները երթևեկության անվտանգության այդ Vision Zero հայեցակարգ առաջնորդի ասաց մարդը սխալվող է, այո, ինքը անմիտ է եւ կարող է սխալվել, ու բացապես պետք է սահմանափակես իր հնարավորությունները տվյալ իրավիճակում, տվյալ վայրում։ Մեր մոտ երկար տարիներ ընդունվել է որ մարդը անսխալական է եւ ինքը պարտավոր է ցանկացած դժվար իրավիճակում իրեն դրսևորել որպես գիտնական եւ պրոֆեսոր այն դեպքում եւ հաղորդական ստանալու համար գիտնական եւ պրոֆեսոր կոչումներ պետք չեն եւ այո պետք է հնարավորինս այս պետական մակարդակով այս նման միջոցառումները շատ լինել եւ ես եւս մեկ անգամ պետք է կրկնեմ ինչպես մեր հանդիպման սկզբում պարոն Կարապետյանը 15-16 թվականից բոլոր նման միջոցառումներին մասնակցում է եւ ինքը նաեւ իր մոտ ընդունելություն կազմակերպում բայց միայն ճանապարհային ոստիկանությանը սլաքները ուղղել ճիշտ չէ քանի որ սա միայն իրենց պարտավորվածությունը չէ սա ամբողջ կառավարության պատասխանատվության տակ է եւ դրա համար պետք է ոչ թե տարբեր կառույցներ քաղաքապետարանի ինչ-որ մի տրանսպորտի բաժին տարածքային կառավարման ինչ-որ մի նախարարության ինչ-որ մի բաժին եւ այլ մեկ կառույց որ ամբողջությամբ կվերահսկի հանրապետությունում իրավիճակը որովհետեւ Երևանում վերահսկելը այլ բան է Երևանից դուրս վերահսկողությունը այլ բան է շնորհակալություն հրավերի համար վարորդներին մաղթում եմ կանաչ ճանապարհ
Thank you for your thoughts. Mr. Karapetyan, as the chief policymaker in the road safety, we started with a little bit of statistics. Give us the hope that we're going to have the next reform that's going to have the ripple effect, please.
Այսպես ասեմ, պետք է բոլորս ուզենանք, որ մի բան ստացվի, հաստատ կստացվի, ես հավաստիացնում եմ։ Պետք է հուսով լինենք, որ հենց այս մեր հանդիպումից հետո, եթե մեզ օնլայն կամ թե չգիտեմ, հենց մեր միջոցառման կազմակերպիչները, լրատվամիջոցները եթե կլսեն, հնարավորինս շատ պետք է լուսաբանվի այս ամեն ինչը, շատ ես բազմաթիվ անգամ եմ դիմել մեր լրատվամիջոցներին, որպեսզի մեր հետ դուրս գան ծառայության այն խնդիրները, այն խնդիրները, որոնք որ միշտ ծագել են ծառայության ժամանակ, որոնք որ միշտ հետիոտնի կամ վարորդի կողմից այդ խախտումները ի հայտ են գալիս, կարողանան լուսաբանել, որպեսզի մյուս վարորդները հետիոտնը տեսնելով նման խախտումներ չանեն։ Իսկ շատ լավ է, որ մենք համեմատվում ենք զարգացած երկրների հետ, խնդիրը այնտեղ ֆինանսավորումն է։ Եթե ֆինանսավորումը շատ լինի, Յան Լեշինգերը ներկայացրեց և հասարակական տրանսպորտի մասով, և հասարակ մեկ տաքսիստի մասով, իհարկե պետք է, եթե երկրի ֆինանսական վիճակը այնպես լիներ կամ քաղաքացիների, որ մենք կարողանայինք արգելել, որ այսքան տարվա տրանսպորտային միջոցը իրավունք չունի տաքսու տակ վարվելու համար կամ արտադիր հասարակական տրանսպորտը պետք է լինի SSS չափորոշիչների, հաստատ մեր մոտ էլ Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում էլ ավելի լավ կլիներ և հասարակական տրանսպորտը և տաքսի տրանսպորտային միջոցները և ուզում եմ բոլոր հայրենակիցներին հիշեցնել, որ հիշեք, որ ձեզ տանը սպասում են։
Thank you so much, and it goes exactly with the campaign that safety is in our actions. So, Mr. Galvanauskas, maybe I'd like you to conclude what we've discussed, your experience, EU experience a little bit, the local experience, your final thoughts, your future plans. In a nutshell, if it's possible.
So I just remembered that there are also positive aspects in Armenian driving and Armenian traffic. What's really different from, let's say, from Lithuanian situation? I've noticed that there are lots of friendly Armenian drivers, meaning they use this informal communication, which is truly effective, like waving to each other, letting another person to go, or so that's really efficient and that works. Just the only thing is that maybe it should be more adopted to the formal regulations of traffic, and then that would be perfect. So that's what I see, where I see the positivity in Armenian traffic. But speaking about the rest of the problems which were covered during this panel, they are very familiar to us. We're just like reading the history of our transport system in Lithuania. And we overcome all these problems, all these challenges, and we have that know-how, that knowledge and transformational experience. And what I would like to highlight that we are ready to share what can be adopted to Armenian transport system. And also, I would totally agree that donor coordination would be very, very welcome in this matter.
Thank you so much. And definitely also the local community and the expert community is looking forward to this, to your experience and to sharing that experience. Mr. Plashinger, as the representative also of the European EU delegation, that we've started also the series of Europe Day events with the road safety event. It underlines the importance of how really significant this issue is, also coupled with the significance of attention that EU is paying on this one. Please share your final thoughts and future plans and your piece of recommendation.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank all the guests and appreciate this discussion that indeed has been inspirational even for me. And I would like to reiterate that while the EU or the embassies are supporting many projects in Armenia, very often these projects are there for the beneficiaries, for the population, for the government, but the road safety actually concerns us physically. So it's something what we as international workers, diplomats here need to deal with on a daily basis. So we are really interested that the improvements in the road safety will take place in an orderly manner and will help to improve the road safety standards here in Armenia. I would like to say that in this SEPA agreement that I mentioned at the beginning, there is a provision not only for the road safety itself, but also for the legislative package that would help Armenia to get inspired by the EU standards. And Evaldas has been talking about them. I could have mentioned a couple of examples from my country, but it takes time, it takes an effort, but eventually the benefits are huge. And the main benefit is really the reduction of death on the roads. We have good cooperation with the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Infrastructure. We hope to continue, and I'm not here to criticize the government, but if I say one thing that is a bit critical and very specific, that was this provision of introduction customs regulation by the Eurasian Customs Union that Armenia adhered to last year. And before, so many cars were imported to Armenia, and in the same time, no technical inspection was introduced. So this is one example where I see something else could have been done. And we are here as the European Union, as the member states, to help to improve the standards and also to prevent some of the mistakes that we ourselves have done in the past. And we have done many, that's for sure. We are not the best, and we are not here to be paternalistic and to show Armenia that we are somehow better. Not at all, not a bit. But we are here to assist, and I'm really happy that we have such a good partners here in Armenia, very professional on very high level, and that we could work together in future to improve indeed the road safety standards in Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if we're allowed, maybe we can give a big round of applause to all of you and us for this wonderful opportunity. I am certain that the followers, including myself, we're graduating this event far more aware and knowledgeable. And if one thing all of us can take today now, in conclusion, is that as a driver, we need to fasten our seatbelt, and as a pedestrian, we need to cross at the crossroad. This is the one thing that we can do today. Thank you all so much.
And thank you for moderating.
My pleasure.